What's poppin', y'all? It looks like Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us has a ripple effect, and it's still haunting their team because Baka Not Nice, who, I might declare it a holiday soon as Baka get back on the road, said by Drake before he was freed, and Baka got a weird case. Why is he around? He finally did an interview and was asked about this and decided to give his own thoughts and opinions, which don't really take us far. First, I'm going to read exactly what this weird case is that everyone references. So this is the report. In 2014, Baka Not Nice was arrested for allegedly forcing a 22-year-old woman into prostitution. The following year, he pleaded guilty to assaulting the woman and failing to comply with conditions for unrelated firearm charges. The procuring for prostitution and human trafficking charges against him were dropped because the woman refused to testify. So this whole scenario, this whole title that they threw on him was for the human trafficking. This is really important because we're going to get into it a little bit later. And I think I have a bit of a nuanced take compared to most in this regard. According to authorities, the victim got into an argument with Baka when she found him passed out drunk as food burned in the oven, which is, this is right. This is like something a woman would argue with a man about, but she's 100% correct because that could have lit on fire. You get some carbon monoxide coming in. Baka's dead. He wouldn't even exist right now, so he probably should have thanked her. She told him off for falling asleep with food cooking, and he allegedly pushed her to the floor. The woman allegedly worked as an escort and was reportedly in a relationship with him at the time of the incident. Now, keep all this in mind. We're going to get into what Baka says. So, the first clip, he starts yapping about wanting to respond to the whole situation. So, I'm going to play you guys that right now.
At first, my first initial thing was to respond. Mm-hmm. And respond quickly, very efficiently, mm-hmm. and very to the point.
Very directly.
Yeah, and but like it started brewing in me because where I come from, like that shit doesn't happen. Like you can't just call out a man and not have paperwork to back up your talks. Like that is ludicrous.
So here he's like, I really wanted to respond. There's no paperwork. Well, like what paperwork is he talking about? And this is what's a little bit hazy during this interview clip. I'm going to play a bunch of different segments. Is sometimes it feels like he's talking about himself, that line, and then sometimes it feels like he's talking about Drake. Because the biggest accusation he made was against Drake. What he said, because he said certified PDS. Now, that does encapsulate everybody, but he's the one that said Drake likes him young. He didn't say that about Baka. He said Baka got a weird case. And regardless of what opinion you have, Baka does have a weird case. Is beating on the chick not weird? I feel like that enough is weird, even though the human trafficking got dropped. That was something that he was initially charged. So he didn't. So I think when he's talking about paperwork, he's like, I don't have human trafficking on my paperwork, which is like, okay, but we continue.
Then to see like a whole nation behind it and celebrating it like it's a true story is unbelievable because everybody has to understand, like I have a kid, Drake has a kid, you know what I mean? So like making accusations like that are like ridiculous and
it is.
Out of this world, you know what I'm saying?
So in this clip, he talks about, kids, these accusations are ridiculous. Number one, you don't think it's even more ridiculous for Kendrick Lamar, who has kids, with a woman he cares about and is still with, unlike Drake. Drake don't care about his baby mama. He just doesn't want her out there embarrassing him. He didn't even want the kid at first. So he's still with the mother, and he's still with his kids. And Drake saying that Dave Free, who's a close family friend and business partner for a very long time of Kendrick Lamar, his kids weren't his? Is that not a crazy accusation to make? And then also saying that he's putting hands or alluding to the potential of him putting hands on that chick, that's not crazy for his own kids to hear? Like, come on now, this is being one-sided here. Let's not forget, Drake's the person that brought family into it. So you as his mans, you can't be like, we got kids and our kids hearing this about us. Drake brought family into this situation. He did the same thing when it came to Pusha T, and this bit him in the behind. Now, I understand, you're Drake's mans. You're Drake's ride or die. No weird intention behind that or no homo intention behind that at all. But this is like Drake's man, and I do think that he's a very valuable asset, and we'll get into why I think Drake keeps him around or messes with him in general. But then he says the USA rallying behind it. Listen, Baka, with all due respect, the entire world rallied behind this, and it wasn't them rallying behind like you having a weird case. They rallied behind a fire song. Now, most people, I would say 90% of people that listen to this song have no idea what a Baka is. Like people that are just hearing Not Like Us on the radio, people that might have it added to their playlist, they don't know what a Baka is. They don't know what a party is. Like when they hear party in the party, they're just thinking like, oh, that's just a line. They don't know that he's referring to party next door. So it's a very small percentage of people that even know that. And then saying like it's a USA thing, the biggest defenders of Drake, Aubrey's Angels, whatever you want to call them, they're American. So it's not an American versus Canadian thing at all. It's a Drake versus Kendrick thing. But then he goes on to say Drake hit his line.
But like, what I was going to tell you is this, like, I was building up a lot of anger and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But then I got a call, and I don't know why I got this call. It's like God said something to him or something, but the boy, sorry, it might not have been a call. It might have been a text message, but he messaged me and he's like, yo, I know what you're feeling. I know you as an individual and I know how you get down, but I'm just letting you know, like, don't listen to the noise because it's noise. And if you go back and look at all these people that are saying things or having anything to say, they're not even actual real people. They're like bots.
Exactly.
So like, don't let that shit bother you, bro.
Facts.
Like, and you know what? Like, I mean, it's not a good thing, but they're calling your name. You know what I'm saying?
So in that clip, I think it shows Drake's level of maturity, and this is where it gets a bit confusing. I don't know if Drake was telling Baka to chill on defending Drake or to chill on Baka defending himself, because Complex and all these other magazines were running press of Baka having a weird case, being a human trafficker before Kendrick Lamar's lyric. And Kendrick Lamar's lyric isn't even to the level of like throwing smut on your name like these other people were doing or these other outlets were doing, and they were far more popular, and this was at a time when Baka had just gotten out of jail. So I think in this scenario, Drake was calling Baka because he felt like, yo, Baka rides for me so hard that he's going to try to say something right now, and I don't need him doing that. So I think this is where it shifts into talking about the accusations levied on Drake, because the narrative is really running on Drake. Not too many people are talking about Baka. Everything is in the context of Drake, and they're trying to create rumors like, oh, these people are procuring and quote-unquote trafficking chicks for Drake, which is a wild accusation to make. I don't know anything about that. But then he goes on to have a little bit of an optimistic view in the following clip.
And at the end of the day, you know, like, they're going to get over this crap because they're going to realize there's this crap, and then they're going to go do their own research. Mm-hmm. And when you do your own research, you're going to be like, wow, this guy made up a whole story about something that isn't even true, and it makes you look weird to me. I don't know.
It does.
But I want to say one thing to America, and y'all need to, like, get yourself together because, yo, making accusations on people, serious accusations like that, you need to have paperwork. That is the rule, like, number one rule that everybody goes by. Mm-hmm. So don't switch up. That's all I'm going to say.
So where he says, oh, yeah, people are going to go do their own research, they're never going to do that. Number one, they don't even know. If most people don't know who Baka is or Drake's scenario. Number two, people just think the lyrics are fire, so they're going to yell them out. Number three, people are going to do confirmation bias type of research. If they don't like Drake, they're going to hop on the wave that says Drake is a weirdo and he's doing all this other stuff, and you, therefore, are weird alongside him. And there will be such a tiny, minute percentage that it doesn't even matter that are like, okay, I understand the full detail of the situation. Like me, for instance. I understand the full detail of the situation, including Baka's case, which we'll get into in a second, more details there. So he calls out, number one, he calls out America. Oh, like, yo, where I'm from, like, America's got to do better. Listen, where you're from is all inspired by America. Hip-hop, where you're a rapper, where Drake's a rapper, that was made in America. That whole gang stuff in the streets, all whatever stuff you were getting down with, that comes from America. Whether it's like you looking up to these mafia bosses, Italian-American, of course, but these gangs, all this activity comes from America. They're imitating Americans. All those Toronto rappers that came up, they were imitating the Chicago drill scene. So let's not play this like, oh, where I come from. Where you come from is adopting the things that American culture, if you want to be specific, you can even like, I would say it's like Italian-American culture too, because they do care about like the whole mob stuff. But it's American culture that's predominantly influencing whatever Baka is trying to talk about right now. So this whole like trying to be like, yo, we're Canadian and you guys are American, and in any way whatsoever trying to down America in this conversation is frankly ludicrous. Like, you can't look at yourself with a straight face and do that. Now, circling back to Baka, why I think Drake kept Baka on his team is the previous offenses by Baka. So Baka did 13 years overall, or he did 13 years for one case. It ended up being 7 or 8. And he did like some armed robberies before that. So this guy was an absolute menace, terrorizing the streets of Toronto, or the greater Toronto area. We'll call it the GTA. But he was doing an interview where he talked about what he was doing and how he ended up getting his time. So I'm going to play you guys 2 clips from that. I think this is really, really important.
At one point, I went on a rampage with my little buddies in the streets.
Yeah,
we were just like doing a whole bunch of robberies, armed robberies, just going crazy as kids, you know? And anyways, long story short, I ended up getting caught.
Okay.
And I ended up taking the charge.
Okay.
Like they didn't have anything on any of my other friends, but they wanted me to roll over on them. But I was like, yo, it was me. And then I made up names. And the names that I made up were like cars. I was like, yeah, my friend Audi. And I just said Corvette. I said Vet. I said Vet or some Corvette or some
whatever
shit.
came to your mind.
You know what I mean? And I just threw them off. So long story short, all my friends got off and I ended up going to the penitentiary as a teenager.
And how old were you when you went in?
I was 18.
So his first clip is the armed robbery that he had gotten into when he was just a teenager, like around 18 years old. So from there, you can probably already tell, like, damn, this is beyond a dude that's solid. Like, this is the opposite of Gunna. Like, he's not saying, like, oh, that wasn't mine. He's saying, yeah, and I was with my homies. Now, I would wonder if this is considered snitching in the modern day, right? Like, you know how these guys are pulling up. They're like, yo, if you talk to police in any type of case, even if you're making stuff up, then that means you're telling. I don't know. Let's defer to the experts on that. I am not an expert on that. But this instance, you're like, man, this is a solid guy. And by solid guy, I mean, like, this is somebody that has such a level of loyalty that he's willing to take the charge for everybody, make up names so they're not sitting in there with him. It's just such a selfless thing to do and an honorable thing to do. So then he gets out after that 2 years, 7 months. I don't know, maybe it was a little bit under that for the armed robbery. And then 30 days later, he ends up going back in. And he goes back in for this scenario, which I'm going to describe to you guys. It's for an attempted murder. So I'm going to play that clip right now.
You did 13 years?
No, I got 2 years, 7 months.
Okay.
For those armed robberies.
Okay.
Got out. I was out for 30 days. And then I got charged with attempted murder for a crime I did not do. My friend did it, but I didn't rat on him again. And I got 13 and a half years.
Wow.
So that's where all the street cred and all that stuff, because everybody from my city, my hood knew that I actually went to prison for something I didn't do.
Yeah.
That's
So, you know,
crazy.
there's a respect for that. You know, there's a respect.
Yeah.
I don't know about now because it's getting so weird.
It's different,
Of course.
But like, yeah.
But in terms of like, okay, you know, 2 years, 7 months is one thing.
Yeah.
But when you get convicted for 13 years,
Yeah, you feel like your life is over.
what? Yeah, I want walk us through what, like that feeling,
That moment too that you even
like
found
that
out.
you
maybe.
that you find that out. Like,
Listen, I was in court. I was in court and my dad was in court, and I put this in my song, one of my songs that I have. I don't know, did I release a song? Give Me That Work. If you guys
Okay.
listen to Give Me That Work, there's a section where I'm talking about where were you when I got the 13 years? Where were you when I was down below, you know? Basically saying, yo, you guys didn't see my dad when he was in the courtroom when the judge said 13 years,
Yeah.
9 months or some shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just a trying time when the judge said that. It didn't hit me. I'll be real with you until I got back to the prison, because you know they do that. They give you your time and then they handcuff you. They bring you back downstairs in the bullpen, and then you get shipped back to the detention center where you're doing your time until, you know. So it didn't hit me until I got in my cell that night, because I'm around people, so your energy's
Still
high.
You think
and
everything's
shit.
okay.
Like,
Yeah.
It's not until you get in your cell,
You're
or
alone?
by yourself, and it hits you. And bro, I'm human. Any guy that wants to tell you that he doesn't cry, fuck you, nigga.
Yeah.
Yo, tears came to my motherfucking eyes. And maybe it came to my eyes because I knew I was an innocent man. I don't know. But tears came to my eye that night, and that's when it hit me like, yo, you're gone. There's no, hold on, let me go back and say bye to my mom. Let me go kiss. Brother, you're going from there, you're going on a bus and you're going fucking out east.
Damn.
Period.
Yeah.
Lock off.
Yeah.
So right here, this is where I got to say, I understand why this is Drake's man's. Because this guy just took an attempted murder where he knew who did it and it wasn't him. He didn't tell on the guy after he just did 2 years and 7 months as a youngin'. And then he gets 13 years. He ends up getting out, I think, 6, 7. Maybe he said maximum 8. But his adulthood is gone, or his young adulthood is gone. He's probably not getting out till he's like damn near 30 or something like that. Or, yeah, maybe in his 30s. And he knows that he didn't do it. And everybody else knows that he didn't do it. Like, this is the level of loyalty that you cannot pay for. You can't buy somebody like this. So I understand why Drake reached out. And he talks about it. He's like, yo, Drake reached out to me and they were giving him a lot of heat. Like, Drake's team, especially when you think about, like, there was the only incident we can ever think of with Noah Shabib, or also known as 40, is when there was that rumor that the information for Drake's kid came from 40 pillow talking to a girl that then forwarded that information to somebody else. I don't know how true that is, but that's the only thing we can potentially think. Now, that is the devastating thing. But regardless, when you think about Oliver, when you think about 40, when you think about Baka, right? When you think about Chubbs, when you think about Hush, all these guys on Drake's team, there is not an ounce of anything like betrayal. They've never said anything that could be interpreted as harming Drake, seeing Drake negatively, not showing anything but support. Like, the level of loyalty and tight-knitness, is that a word? Of this team is really beautiful to see. Now, TDE is somewhat similar, I will say. Like, Kendrick's circle is really, really small. But for Drake, I just think it's like everybody just fades into the back and they're like, yo, we're going to let him do his thing and we're going to support him. And Drake picked the right team. Like, the guy's got like a little militia with him, right? Like, Chubbs putting the beats on people like Detail, who deserved more than just the beats. Hopefully he gets like 25 to life for what he was doing to these chicks. That guy was an absolute menace. But with Baka, right, circling back to the human so the human trafficking thing comes after the attempted murder. So he was living with, this guy was basically pimping out a chick, right? This is what seems to be the case. Now, the problem is with certain definitions of words, it gets watered down. So when someone hears in their head human trafficking, right, their thought is, oh, it's the Taken movie. Some guy pulls up in a truck or a van and picks up 2 chicks, throws them in there, throws like some hood over their head, ties them up, and then ships them to some other country, and then has them in the back of a foot rub shop or something like that, selling services, takes their passports, they're not allowed to leave. So when you have a vision of that, and sometimes it's even underage when you throw that in there, you're like, whoa, this charge is crazy. But when you see the situation with Baka, or just even like pimps in general, because that really changed the game, a lot of them, it's I say just in quotations, it is an upset. Like, someone gets upset, especially the chick. Like, the chick, they already said she's an alleged escort, so she was already working in this profession. And Baka's in somewhat of a relationship with her, so he's getting paid, and this was her frustration. He was getting paid everything that she was making, which is really just a pimp deal. That's how it works. And I guess, like, this altercation, this argument escalated into her getting offended or feeling emotionally hurt. So she goes to the police about the situation. And that's what slaps these charges on, or these accusations. But then he ends up just doing it for the beating the chick. Now, the beating the chick is still crazy. So you already know Baka was out here not nice. He was not nice. He was not pimping from the lip. He was definitely pimping from the hip. He was gorilla pimping on these chicks, which, hey, man, would you expect any less? And Baka's appearance doesn't help him either. Like, when you see Baka, you're like, yeah, that guy seems like he'd put lights out on not just men, but also women. So it doesn't help his case there. But that's the whole scenario. But the thing with Kendrick is, like, for example, if Kendrick was saying, like, because a lot of people thought it had to do with underage chicks, which is not the case with Baka. So I think he's telling people to check the paperwork for him, because when you look at it, you take a note, and he ended up doing like what, less than 2 years for this? But what Kendrick said is still correct. Like, this is a weird case to have. Like, you beating on a chick. Now, when you take into context, it's like, okay, you're dealing with a woman of the night, and there are different rules you play. Like, it's still weird regardless. And they're playing a game of propaganda and destroying each other's image. So you're going to use whatever tools you have at your arsenal. So the Kendrick stans that really want to take Drake down, they're going to paint you as this figure from Taken. And they're going to leave out a lot of details. They're not going to do research that says, oh, like, he pled down and she actually withdrew these charges. She didn't want to testify on them. It's not that she didn't want to testify on them out of fear, because then she would have probably dropped all the charges, right? So they're not going to do that. They're just going to go and paint you as like, oh, nah, this guy's like was trafficking chicks, and then Chubbs is the one that's getting them. And they have to create this whole picture that's going to take Drake down and support whatever claims Kendrick Lamar made, which Kendrick Lamar doesn't even believe those claims. He just threw them out there because it's how you win a beef. But then you've got dunce fans that actually believe the stuff. But let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Man, I can't believe Not Like Us or this whole beef was a year old. It feels like maybe 6 months ago because the after effects of it are still going on. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you in the next one.